Neighboring Kenya has one of the most closely watched presidential races in Africa, as incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta faces off Tuesday against longtime rival Raila Odinga. The killing of a key election official just days before the vote has elevated concerns after a contentious campaign period. VOA's Jill Craig reports from Nairobi.
The race between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga is projected to be tight. Some argue the candidates haven't stopped campaigning since the last election in 2013 that also pitted them against each other.
So there's a sense in which the elections have occupied the collective national consciousness of the Kenyan citizen and the voter. So it's a big deal.
But there is more than the presidency on the ballot. Research analyst Tom Wolfe believes that the 47 county races are generating at least as much buzz as the presidential contest. Definitely more so than in 2013, he says.
But many Kenyans, and we've seen this in our polling data, did not fully understand or appreciate just how much power or responsibility was being devolved from the center to the regions through the counties. So if you go and travel around the counties now, you will see as much, if not more, campaign activity that's associated directly for the contest for governor as there is for the presidency.
The organization of the polls has been a source of tension for more than a year, sparking opposition protests and several court battles. Complicating matters is the recent killing of the Electoral Commission's technology chief, Chris Msando, whose autopsy results show he was tortured and strangled. Msando was responsible for the electronic voter identification and vote transmission systems.
There's every possibility of people tying that passing on to the elections and to the possibility that there could be foul play. Remember, we are not saying that there's definitively anything like that, but the context opens up space for that kind of speculation.
And against the backdrop of the election season, Kenyans are still suffering from problems resulting from a regional drought emergency, like food insecurity and high food prices.
There's a lot of serious challenges facing the people of this country. So I'm hoping for a strong outcome with elected politicians who will take their job seriously and really perform for the people who are electing them.
As campaigning wrapped up, youth took to the streets of Eldoret to march for peace. Kenya's Rift Valley region was the epicenter of the post-election violence in 2007 and 2008 that killed more than 1,000 people and displaced over 500,000. Kenyans hope these elections will be violence-free. Jill Craig, VOA News, Nairobi.
Now joining us live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya with more election news is Africa 54's Vincent Makori. Good evening, Vincent.
Good evening, Esther.
Now, Vincent, there are reports that there are more heightened tensions in Kenya just hours before the polls. What more can you tell us?
Well, I think it's very clear how much tension there is, how much anxiety and fear. When you look at what happened over the weekend, yesterday on Sunday, thousands, if not perhaps hundreds of thousands and millions of people across the country flocked churches and places of worship to petition God for a peaceful election. Looking back at 2007, you can tell that the nation was traumatized by the events of that time. The violence that killed over 1,300 people has led many to worry so much about tomorrow's elections that are just a few hours away that they feel that only God can guarantee them the peace and security that they really want to see maintained in this country the day after tomorrow.
Now, Vincent, the social media as well as mainstream media in Kenya is abuzz with all kinds of news, and there are also reports of fake news as well. How does one tell between what is real and what is fake?
It's been confusing. In fact, there has been calls from the government that people have to make sure, and particularly the mainstream media, not to report on things that are coming from sources that are not clear, which end up being fake news by people who may have an appearance of being like some real reliable newspapers or some kind of television network. And so because of that, there's a lot of confusion. I mean, there have been reports all over the place, perhaps to kind of indicate what's happening behind the scenes. Some reports, though, are real, but it's the way they are presented by the media houses. For example, there's a report today in the newspaper that police in the lakeside city of Kisumu received many first aid items, including hundreds of body bags. Now, body bags, of course, to many mean that there's an expectation of hundreds of people dying. But the police are saying, well, this is just preparedness for whatever can happen. Just they're stocking the necessities for an emergency, just like the Red Cross would do. But such kind of things go to social media, and the people just focus on the body bags and therefore conclude that there is a plan to kill hundreds and hundreds of people in places like Kisumu. And this kind of reporting, this kind of information, when it keeps doing its rounds and many people don't have the background, can create a lot of fear.
Well, given such reports, Vincent, just hours before the polls open, how well prepared are the Kenyan authorities to handle any sort of crisis that may occur?
In fact, just today, a few hours before the polls, the acting cabinet secretary for the internal security, Dr. Matiang'i, assured the nation that the security authorities are the security officials are actually ready and prepared to make sure there is peace throughout the electioneering, or rather the voting process. The police chief has said that there are over 150,000 security agents will be around polling stations all around the country. That is the largest number of security agents to be deployed during an election, more than double what was witnessed 2013. So that tells you how prepared they are, but what they anticipate. The security operators themselves seem to be anticipating some trouble.
Now, thank you so much, Vincent. Africa 54's Vincent Makori reporting live via Skype from Nairobi. Kenyans in the diaspora are keeping a close eye on the election. Those living outside the continent will not be able to cast their vote on Tuesday. But that did not stop a small group of demonstrators from gathering in front of the Kenyan embassy in Washington Friday. They were protesting against the killing of Electoral Commission official Chris Msando. The protesters called for a free, fair and credible election. They urged authorities to ensure Kenyans can go to the polls Tuesday without fear of violence or vote rigging.
So many people have been killed mysteriously. We are tired of these killings. We are saying stop this rigging, stop these killings. We don't want them anymore.
Kenyans are tired. They want the basic need like ugali back on their table. And with this election coming up, if they vote the right person back into the office, Kenyans are going to have their ugali back on the table.
If the voting system is taken away from the public, then what do they have? The public has a right to choose who their leader is. Whoever they chose to be their leader should be the person that leads. But at this time, Kenyans have expressed their need for change.